Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second in the series of Goose Ocean Observing Ocean Coordination Group webinars, facilitated by the Capacity Development Task Team. Our webinar today will look at OceanOPS, which is formerly known as JCOMMOPS, and the international coordination and monitoring they undertake for in situ met-ocean observing networks. We are joined for this presentation by Mathieu Balbiot, the OceanOPS lead, and Antonin Lee, the OceanOPS IT lead. Before we get started, just some small housekeeping arrangements. Please add your questions to the chat box, which we will monitor throughout the webinar. We hope to address as many of these, along with any additional questions raised in the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You can do this by raising your hand, and we also have technical support if you have any technical problems during the webinar itself. In addition, a short survey will be sent out after the webinar to get your feedback on the content, whether you have further queries on the OceanOPS system and of the webinar itself. Additionally, the survey will have a link for you to register for future Goose webinars in this series. For now, I'd like to hand over to Mathieu. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank also to all the organizers of this webinar series. So I'm glad to be able to interact with you today. So as it was introduced, OceanOPS is a joint IOC center. It was called before JCOMMOPS, and we are now rebranded into OceanOPS. The aim of this webinar is to introduce you with our strategic plan and who we are. To illustrate our monitoring strengths through our web-based application, we will get a demonstration with Antonin after, and to encourage observing system operators to provide us with metadata. And we will be clarifying what we call metadata. And we want also to encourage your feedback, to encourage our users to provide us with feedback on the services we have developed. So. A little introduction on our strategy. OceanOPS has changed its name, and this name change is indicating our ambition to be the eye of the global ocean observing system. And after 2 decades of activities, we are approaching this goal. You see on this map the number of observing systems that are under our radar. So there are a number of mobile systems, surface, like the drifting buoys, polar buoys, or subsurface, like the floats or the animal-borne sensors, a number of fixed systems, and a number of ship-based measurements as well. So our vision is indicated there, but our mission basically is to monitor the system, to report on its status, and use our central role to support efficient observing system operation. And we want to know what is operating right now in the ocean, and we want to support the different community implementing the system on a wide range of domains to have a better observing system in the end, an integrated observing system and a performant observing system. So our goals, we have developed a strategy with our, I would say, community, with our governance, with our stakeholders, a strategy for the next 5 years, and in five goals that I will shortly introduce. So the first goal is to effectively monitor the system to improve its performance. To that end, we have a large variety, as I mentioned, of observing systems, which have different way to function. And we need to develop some analysis tools and metrics for all these networks, and on an harmonized way, I would say, even if they have very different specificities. Then we can analyze a number of trends, identify gaps in the networks, strengths and weaknesses, and report to the different steering teams and panels that are implementing those networks. Our, I would say, also ambitious objective is to report on a cross-network perspective on the variable. Then to build those monitoring tools, we need fuel, and our fuel is metadata. So, and we'll expose what it is. But we have also the ambition and the mission and the goal to lead metadata standardization and integration across the global ocean observing networks. So we need to communicate on the standard we're trying to raise, to develop the web services required for machine-to-machine exchange, our API basically. We need also to work on vocabulary and metadata and provide a high quality standard of metadata for all networks. Also, we provide support on data access, on data exchange, and eventually we'll need to connect, and it's already the case actually, to connect our system to the larger initiative and international data system of IOC, of UNESCO, and WMO. Our third goal is to provide day-to-day support to our to the implementers, as I said. So the goal is to deploy instruments in the ocean at the right place at the right time, to equip ships. So we provide support to the different teams doing that day-to-day job. So we have tools to identify the gaps, you see on the right. We have information on the planned cruises. So the cruises are going likely to be able to present opportunity to fill those gaps in the future. But we can also trigger some opportunity on our end through different, I would say, non-academic opportunities, civil society or different partnerships to deploy instruments where they are needed. And we have also a number of tools to facilitate the operation of the system, and a number of alerts when the different platforms, in particular the Argo floats, are approaching coastal states' waters. So we have a kind of event management for that. Our fourth goal is to enable new data streams and support the emerging networks. You have one nice example on the right of an emerging network that is very promising. So we provide them basic services in terms of their implementation, data flow, instrumentation. But we also have the ambition to pilot a number of third-party projects to augment the network and member state contribution to the GOOS. Yes, and so you will see very soon our IT capacity, but we're a team of 8 people. And now we need to shape our small team for the future, always toward, I would say, the integration and the cross-network perspective. So we're going to work on that. You have an example of our colleagues here in Brest, but also in Geneva or in Toulouse. So when we talk about metadata, we could call that information as well. The first very important point is to secure the interoperability of systems. And for that, you need unique identifiers. And you might be surprised, but it's not the case everywhere for every observing system today. And it's not that easy to resolve, especially when you want to also take care of the past. So interoperability, unique identifiers is the first thing we provide in terms of metadata. Then we provide structuration for the GOOS elements. We have systems of system and sub-networks. There's quite a complexity and diversity there of implementers, agencies, funding agencies, data centers, people, programs. So we try to shape all that and structure that. Then we describe the instrument. We need to know a minimum what is operating in terms of hardware, of sensor, of telemetry capacity, of configuration, firmware. And this enables the variable perspective, which is very important. Then we track the operations when the crews are going at sea, in the past, in the present, in the future, to deploy instrument, to retrieve instrument, to service some moorings. And the ships are really our I would say, a common denominator. All the systems are based on ship operation. Finally, we have a couple of other links that are important. After this metadata on the capability of the system, we link our information system to the data, to the big data hubs, in particular the GTS of the World Meteorological Organization and the varied global data center of the oceanographic community. And then we can check and make the simple difference between what's operating in the ocean and what's providing data. And we can constantly work to optimize that data flow. We also get information from the industry, from sensor and platform manufacturers, telecom providers. That's a link that has to be further exploited, but it's an important one. So that's basically the information we have, and now Antonin will explain you how what we do with that information, how we add value, and what services we develop.
Thank you, Mathieu. Hi, everyone. So yes, so once we gather all this metadata, so basically we receive those information in various different formats, different shapes. And so our first task, and one of the biggest, is to ingest everything into our system. And that starts with I'd say the biggest task, which is modeling or translating everything in an integrated way, in a way that we enrich the metadata and our whole database to match all different networks, so that we can build an integrated system. Then doing that, also we harmonize everything by using reference tables and a shared entity, as Mathieu said, for example, the ships. And to do so, we base our work on existing standards when they're available, like the CDataNet or WAGO standards, or essential variables. And using that, we can also apply unicity into the system by checking metadata and get the unique IDs, or provide unique IDs based on the elements, like the WMO code or the ASIS code for ships, etc. And finally, all the metadata ingested in OceanOPS is controlled and adjusted manually by all the team as necessary. And so this diagram that you have on the right is only a subset of a database, but once we've done all of that, we are really far away from the simple flat CSV format we can have. So this is an overview of all the relationship in our database. So it becomes quite complex linked data in the background. Once we have that, we can start to do something with the metadata. So every element enters kind of an autonomous system where everything will have a life cycle, and this is done by different routines, which runs, like, for example, Mathieu said about the link to the different observation feeds. But when, and it includes as well geographical information. And once we've done that, we can geo-track everything in the system to provide the economic exclusive zone warnings, for example, or warn the operator when a float is drifting under the ice. We can also do some special analysis to compute density or coverage to improve the implementation of the different networks. And everything is rendered and handled through different event logs, and we can notify, as I said, operators through a notification system. So in the end, we can break down our metadata in 3 different categories. The first one being the provided metadata, as we said, for example, the ship code, or the deployment date, or the different sensors. The derived metadata, which can be, well, we got the ship codes provided, we can derive the name or the flag of the ship. We can also get the EOVs from the sensors provided, or the different contacts and agencies from the program name, for example, which was provided. And also the computed metadata, which, like, for example, the age of the platform or the status. The status we have in OceanOPS is a computed status based on what we can see coming from the different observation feeds we can link to. So we have different status as shown on this slide, from drafting, probable, and confirmed. We tag a platform registered when everything is certain to be deployed, and we allocate a unique ID for it. Then from that point, we can start to track from the different data feeds. And as soon as we can see data coming on the GTS or the different data centers, we tag it operational. And if data is not received during a certain time, we will tag it inactive. And if we see data again, we can go back to operational, and vice versa. And after a certain time, or when the instrument is declared recovered, we tag it closed, and that's the end of life of this particular instrument. So now that we have all this metadata running in the background and living in the background, we can start to make products. And our first and main product is the authoritative status map that we produce each month, which report on the current status at the time of the production of the map for a given network or the integrated view. We produce some indicators, key performance indicators, and as well, and each month alongside with the maps, and it enables us to have time series of these indicators and to be able to evaluate different criteria for the different networks. We also implemented a data tracking tool, so we will check every day the number of observations received for each network so that we can assess if there is any drop. And particular use of this tool was to assess the COVID impact in the different observing systems. Each year, we support and contribute to the edition of the Ocean Observing System Report Card, which is a report assessing the implementation and the status of the different network while putting a focus on their societal values through different application areas. We will release quite very soon what we call the OceanOPS built-in, which will be a report basically of the status, mixing the indicators and the maps. We have both, and some highlights written by the teams. We have also data exchange, of course, so through file exports, an API that we will soon release, which is in beta version for now and needs some more documentation. And our GIS services, which are available through ArcGIS servers, ArcGIS services or OGC services as well. And finally, our main window to the system, the monitoring dashboard, which is quite an ambitious web application which aims to fulfill different services. So indeed, it can look overwhelming, and because it's complex and needs to provide a wide variety of service. So to that end, I'm going to go through different use cases through videos. All the videos are available on that YouTube playlist. We'll see if we have time to go through all of them. But the first one is if you land on the website and every user, and you want to find basic information about OceanOPS, what do you do? So we can see on that website you have the top bar, which is more to use the dashboard itself and go through the metadata. But you can go to the different theme if you need to for the different observing networks. But if you scroll down or click on that arrow, you can access different static information about OceanOPS, contact, or tutorials, and also some media information, including the news feeds from Twitter or from the notification system. So now let's say I'm the German voice operator and program manager, and I want to check the status of my fleet regularly. I can do so by opening in the dashboard this select form, which by default display everything that is operational. But you can query various fields, like the country in that case and the network. And so this will basically change the whole sample of metadata displayed on the full web application, including the map in the background, but also this table down on the screen, at the bottom of the screen, which you can customize to add or remove some columns, and then export the data displayed in that table if you want to. So from that sample we just built, we can also display wide varieties of statistics, which you can also customize to break down by different groupings, for example. Here we display every variables measured by the samples we have in the background. So now, since I want to do that regularly, I can save this query used to build that sample. And I can set it by default so that when I come back to the website, if I'm logged in, this will be loaded by default. And then I can see in this load menu, I can find those queries. So now, if I want to change the underlying query to take everything that is operational for the VOS Germany deployed between 2010 and 2015, I can type it like this and the system will create, if you apply it, and update everything that is displayed on the screen. And you can go back to your previous query by loading that. So basically, anyone logged in can make its own dashboard and go back to it whenever they want. Another use case, if let's say I'm a data user and I want to access everything that is measuring the oxygen EOVs in the on the whole globe. So I will select everything that is operational, but also inactive and closed because I want the history of it. I can quick find a search field in that filter, and so in that case, I was looking for the variable family, which I put in it the oxygen EOV. So now I'm displaying everything that is measuring oxygen in those all observing elements. So for example, I can access the different metadata underlying. And so for this ocean site mooring, for example, I can see that indeed, yeah, in those sensors, I will find the sensor measuring oxygen. So now if I want to restrict that sample to one basin, I can do that as well. So I'm going to filter everything to only display what is doing those measurements, but in the Indian Ocean, and so you can just the same way like modify the query, and this will update as well, like previously, all the sample on the website. And so then we can see that everything which is measuring oxygen in the Indian Ocean, and including some cargo floats and some gliders. And now starting from that same sample, if I want to not a wide, not a full EOV, but only a simple variable, I can do that as well. So if I want everything that is measuring air pressure, I'll get it as well from the variable field. And so we can see that a lot of elements are measuring air pressure in this basin, including ocean site mooring, weather moorings, surface drifters, and VOS stations. And let's try now another example. So the same way you're looking for the variable fields, you're modifying the selection, and you can type it the variable if you want. So we want the subsurface temperature. You apply the query, and everything updates accordingly. But now we want to see what is measuring subsurface temperature and filter it by depth. You can do that as well by just changing the depth filter, and everything will slowly disappear to show only the really deep elements of the ocean observing systems, mainly ocean site moorings and deep cargo floats. This use case is if I want to do some outreach and I want to check all the elements deployed during the sailing race Vendée Globe. So I'm going to check this cargo float deployed by the skipper Alexa Baye, which happen to know today is coming back home tomorrow. So you can display the data of this particular cargo floats, which are served by an ADAP instance in iFromAir, which is really helpful because it's a direct access to data, and I can just query it from an cargo float and display it. But I want also to display this particular drifter tracks, which also which is built from the GTS feed, this one. So you can access a few metadata around this drifters track. And if I want to check that drifter particularly, I can also directly type in the WMO code in this quick search box and to access its page here. And I think I'll stop with this one given the time. So now let's say I'm an operator, I'm a logged in user, and I want to register a cruise plan into the system. We have that capacity. So you have this drawing tool on the website where you can just draw a cruise like this, Crosstrack like this. You can, if you realize you made a mistake, you can just modify it by moving points or add vertices to it. And once you're done with it, you can there is a possibility to compute to densify it with the orthodromy of it, and this will draw the cruise according to the grid circles, Then once you're done with that, you can just register the cruise to this form. If you do not provide a geometry for it, and you select lines, for example, if it's a cruise implementing a Cauchy line, we will automatically take the geometry of the line and save it like this. All those videos were only some examples of what this web applications is able to do, and we will release more tutorials, help and documentations, but also we are thinking about doing some training sessions to be able to provide more insights of this, what we can do with that web applications. We will soon release, we are finalizing our API and we will soon release it. And this will enable the user to access metadata, but also in the second step to enter metadata directly via this API. This API is open source, available on GitHub, and we are open to contributions and feedback from the community. We've seen some EOV queries on the system, but we want to develop more this perspective on the integrated system to make it more easy to search. We will develop regional and light dashboards to be able to provide easier user experience on the website through faceted queries and facilitated access to charts and statistics. We will also develop the reporting capacity of the website. For example, if you build your own sample, you have all your charts and you want just to generate a PDF out of it, we will we plan to implement that functionality. And finally, every time we work with the network to define specifications to enter the database, to enter their metadata to our database, we enrich our database. And doing so, we become more and more flexible, more and more complex at the same time, and we are able to cover more and more networks. So in that way, we will the more networks we will handle, and the more the others will benefit from each other.
Thanks, Antonin. That was a great illustration of our web toolbox. It's really a software, so don't see it as a website. You need investment, and this website is done mainly for the people implementing the network. We want to open that to a larger user community, but it's mainly the tool, the day-to-day tool for many implementers. And you may have seen other dashboards showing the status of the goose. There are a plethora of dashboards around us, but the specificity of that one, it's provide you the ground truth, because every little dot you see on that map, the information is provided by the people going at sea, dropping those instruments. That's first-hand information. And then the information is quality control by our team of experts to make sure that we know everything about all these little dots. And in the end, we want to build together because we need the larger communities, the operators to write in this system, to contribute to this system, so we can build together an integrated perspective on the goose. So we look forward to your feedback, and we thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mathieu and Antonin. There's been a number of comments come through on the question box, thanking you both for the presentations, but also for the idea of further training sessions. And so this seems to be something that the community is very keen for, which is great. I have a few questions. I wonder if I can put them forward to you now. The first is from Sean Smith. Is metadata ingest format, the metadata ingest format, can the OceanOPS system take metadata from ships that are not contributing to the BOS or are not transmitted over the GPS, for instance, things like research vessels and other mechanisms?
Okay, hi Sean, thanks for your question. I would say yes. We have, you see these observing networks, you know, GoShip, Argo, DBCP, etc. These are this is the mandate we have from the Goose Observation Coordination Group. And we know there is a number of observing networks that are at the boundary of those big networks and that will never really find their place as big networks. Our ambition is also to capture that information in our system because you have overlapping, you know, your ships are maybe carrying a weather system, maybe not, but they might in the future. So we are very interested to get a global perspective and to capture the information as you provide. So in terms of metadata feed, we basically accept any format, you know, whatever, text file, netcdf in any version. We're more interested in the content. You know, we talk about machine-to-machine exchange, but what we want is the content. Because the machine can read any format basically, but to have the same ship name everywhere, so you can know what this ship has been providing, this is another story because nobody is writing the ship on the same way.
Thank you, Mathieu. Henry Kletter has a question about networks and their other statuses in terms of day-to-day operations. Can these also be implemented through the system?
Sorry, Tammy, can you please repeat? I didn't get the beginning of the question.
Sorry, Henry Kletter, he has a question on day-to-day statuses of the networks. So the other day-to-day operations that need to be undertaken, can these be implemented through the OceanOPS system?
Yes. So yes, I mean, there's two things. There's the status. It was not really a mention, but the status is near real time. Depends the network. You know, some are sending data every hour, some are sending data every 10 days, some are going at sea every decade. So depend on the frequency of the system. So our system is real time and is the most real time possible, I would say. But there, as you say, there are a number of other activities by the networks in terms of maintenance. In particular, if I'm seeking to weather stations and port meteorological officer, and all that is linked. So we're likely to capture that information also because we want to show the performance of the system. But for the system to be performant, you have people working in the background. You have people planning some cruises, planning some maintenance, and we need to also dimension this effort to see if it can meet the target. And how can you maintain a fleet of 2,000 ships? Well, you need a number of people to do a number of things. So we want to capture that. So yes, we would be happy to do that. And I think in the latest version of the VOS metadata format that your community assembled, there is some of this information that we will capture.
Okay, great. I have a question from Alejandro de la Maza. Where can I find near real-time weather reports from ships and buoys? Is this data behind restricted access?
Okay, thank you again. That's a good question. So the data, our aim is not to serve data. Antonin make you the demonstration when there is an easy peak, like a nice air dap on top of a GDAC. it's easy for us to link our metadata, our capability to the available data. But our aim is not to serve data. However, for, I think, the weather observation on drifters or on ships, a number of national partners, like, the European, or, for example, have developed a number of, I would say, data tools that are embedded into our system. So you might click on a drifter and get the data through, jumping to, I would say, Météo France or the German Weather Service, for example, if they have such capability. So, but we have the ambition in the end also to provide the data, but if only it is an easy pick. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. We focus on the metadata, I would say.
Okay, so Emma Reeves had quite a few questions, and I'm going to start with the first one now. In terms of your goal 3, aligned with your goal 3, do you provide endorsement for obtaining licenses needed for particular deployments?
Sorry, so do we seek endorsement for? Sorry, Tammy.
Can you help provide endorsement for obtaining licenses needed for particular deployments? And I'm assuming here this might be in terms of EEDs. I'm not sure if Emma is still online and would like to develop that question a bit more. Emma, if you want to unmute yourself. No.
Okay, so but
so
I can answer. We have some. I mean, we are part of international organization. IOC, UNESCO, and WMO. There are a number of I would say international regulation for that, not for all those systems. So we have some. We can provide some guidance, but I can just answer that this guidance is often bilateral. So it will depend on the instrument, on the implementing state, and on the coastal state. So we won't have one answer for everything, but you can consult us and we will provide, I would say, direction and support. We have also been obtaining a number of clearances through our connection with the different members and member states. We have obtained a number of concurrencies in some I would say, coastal waters. This is purely opportunistic, but sometimes we try to get also some political support from a number of countries. It's not only by providing data buoys, but also opening your waters is a strong contribution to the goose.
Perfect. Some more data-related questions now. Do you use ERDAP servers for facilitating interoperability?
So, Antonin, I leave that one to you.
So yeah, thank you. ERDAP service is mainly used for now to for us to access metadata around observations, and it really facilitates it because especially we linked for some networks, we linked with OSMC to get the GTS data they gathered on their side, and it's really makes things really easier for us to access those metadata and track in the real time the status of the observing elements. So yes, I'd say we use it for interoperability purposes because it just makes things easier.
And to complete also that question, on the other sense, we are probably going to set up also an ERDAP on our metadata services. You might have seen in Antonin's part that we're already delivering our metadata routinely to WMO in their WIGOS compliant format. It's a very complex format, but Antonin has been the champion to facilitate that work for all the observing networks that don't have to enter into this this complex format. But ERDAP is a practical way also to enhance the number of services and improve the interoperability of our system. So we will be using in both senses.
Maybe just staying on data, which is another question that's come from Emma. Which standard data and metadata common models are you considering? And this is, yeah, quite a...
You mean in terms of structure? So the structure of our database has been organically built from our expertise and in close cooperation with networks. Now, in terms of content, so you might find other databases that are handling that information, but it is specific to the service we develop. So when you set up a database, you need to sync to the whole chain. you know, from the information you will gather and from the service you want to develop. Yes, I'm a bit lost with, with the question. I don't think I answered totally. Tammy, can you help me and remind me the second part of the question?
Standard data and metadata common models, perhaps.
Okay, got it.
Linking, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then the content, it's very hard for us because we would be so happy to work with control vocabulary everywhere. But it took years for us to get the ICS code, the unique ship code, into the system. Years. And then for sensors, there's a large complexity. There's some nice standards like CDataNet, but they are not totally complete. Same on WMO side. So we don't have for all those vocabulary, all those elements, we don't have reference tables. So we need to build them together with the different networks. And our role is somehow to bridge between the oceanographic standards that have been developed in Europe and elsewhere, and the, I would say, operational standard developed by around the WMO, for example. So we need to stick all that together. So in the end, eventually, we will have the same code table for the key element, the key metadata we handle.
Okay, I'm going to jump to a question now about the web toolbox. Is this something that anybody can store on his or her system, or will every data need to be sent to your server?
Antonin, for you.
For now, it's a web application, so you need a web browser, and to access it, you need an internet connections. We plan for this. We plan to make all the codes open source, of course. And on this website, also everything that is developed, most of the thing that is developed, you can embed it on on your own website if you want. We have functionalities in some, like, for example, the key performance indicator frame. You can just embed it on your own website, or the different maps, or even the interactive maps. You can embed it on your website, but it needs connection to the internet and it communicates with our servers. Yeah, if that's the question. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect, thank you. We've got a question here from Jay Perlman. Can we link the observation platforms with the methods and best practices that they each use, perhaps even individually? This may be a platform name with the relevant methods. They could also relate to methods for EOVs.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. Our web-based system is really focusing on an engine working around the different instruments. It can be enriched with many other things. You know, there is documentation, and the best practices documents are, you know, very interesting documentation, but there are websites for that. I don't see right now the link, how we could make the link. I'll think about it. We will think about it in the team. I don't see it now. But there's certainly a number of guidance we can provide, you know, how to deploy an instrument, how to recover, and we have some of that, you know, best practices with regard to instrumentation, with regard to data access. You know, something we should be able to do is to guide people to get data from all these systems. It's not an easy answer. And currently, OCG and Goose are starting a data mapping to try to clear the landscape of this jungle of data for all the systems. So we'll think about that, Jay. Thank you for the question.
There's also been a number of comments and questions that have come through about your training sessions that you'd like to get underway. So honestly, I think that's been the greatest comment from the community at the moment. Linking two questions together maybe is, do you have any plans as yet? Do you have any dates and periods, or how are you going to be rolling it out, especially considering the different time frames around the world? And are you intending to interact with the IOC or the IODE Ocean Info Hub project?
That's another good question. Yes, we have the appetite to share that because we want to improve that and to have a collective approach. So I think Antonin already participated in the Ocean Teacher, initiative. We could for sure use those big, international, I would say, capacity to provide some training session. We definitely want to do it. We haven't thought yet to the format, to the frequency. We have been doing it with every network, with some of our friends of the observing system, for I would say providing some ad hoc training session, and we're still happy to provide training to anyone. Today all is virtual, so you open a teleconference and we jump on the web and we can interact. But we'd like to formalize it a bit more. So I think we will need some further discussion in our governance and with our friends of IODE, IOC, WMO to see how we can get those training sessions on the rails.
We have an interesting question here from Janet Springsall. Does OceanOPS have thoughts on providing or sharing observations and metadata from commercial enterprises?
We are in contact with some of these new players in the observing systems that are putting instrument from a private perspective, and so we have sail drones on one end, there are some drifters on another end. So we're getting in touch with them, basically to give them also insights on how the community is working. This community of ocean observation is special, so you cannot enter like that and understand how it works. So we provide support. We have started discussion. I would say we are tracking sail drones when they are operating by one program, by a national program, if you will. When NOAA is operating some sail drones, they are in our system. But we don't yet have elements that are not under a national responsibility, if you will. There might be some in the future, probably through third parties. We're also working, with some shipping companies to try to get some more inputs in the system. So some instruments to get more weather stations on ships that are covered by the private. So we would like to, I think the basic criterion is, are the data free and unrestricted? If they are, if the system is fully transparent, if we know who is operating what, and if the data are available, I would say yes. Also, it has to be something rather sustained. We are not going to chase all the ad hoc observing system everywhere, but we have been trying, the oil and gas communities, they have some gliders, so they're going through some national channels, so we get them in the end, but there are much more. There's probably some potential we'd like to unlock, and to that end, we have set a proposal for the UN decade. The project is called Odyssey, and it means to, I would say, through a very collective work, to exploit the potential of private and civil society observing system or contribution to the observing system. So why not? Let's see.
Thank you. Estelle has a question. What is the relation to the WIGOS tools such as OSCAR and the Surface and the WMO data quality monitoring tool?
Antonin, you're the champion there.
So basically, every marine, in situ observing elements of the ocean that you can see on OSCAR surface is provided by us in terms of metadata. So the API that we are building is able to output WIGOS XML compliant, which can be pushed then into OSCAR, and we do that. We do that on a daily basis to update any elements, to add all the new elements which are operational into our system, and so that's basically the primary link. And in those metadata, we include every sensor that are installed on those platforms, and also the GTS ID they are using on the GTS to be able to link to the data behind.
And yes, and to complete, we are very careful when we do that, because when we send metadata to WMO, to the OSCAR system, it's for eternity. So we're really controlling what we're sending. So for now, I would say this metadata set we're sending is modest. So we have the core parts. We'll enrich that slowly. But basically, when our system provides a unique Y-GOS identifier, so that's a new, I would say, long, truly unique identifier, it's a green light to go into OSCAR.
Perfect, thank you. I have one more question here. Are you getting data that is already available in other data systems like OBIS? And we talked more about serving metadata, not data at this stage.
So at this stage, no. We are starting to talk. I would say our transition chain will be maybe the ANIBOS program. So we start to interact with the biological world. You know, we started with a meteorologist, and then the physical oceanographers, and the biogeochemist, and now the biology. So we're just following the goose evolution. So yes, we will need to work with them and work together. So this will be, I think, fostered by the EuroSea project, currently happening in Europe, but with also some international connection. So I would say maybe in a couple of years I could answer positively to that question.
Okay, thank you, Mathieu. I've gone through, I think, most of the questions that were entered into the chat box. I see hands are up from Rita, and I wonder if you want to unmute yourself and just ask your question directly. I don't think I had it in the question box. See, Rita, you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. No, not coming through, unfortunately. Perhaps there's a problem technically. Is there any other questions from the floor at the moment? Any other questions for either Mathieu or Antonin around the OceanOPS system? If not, at this stage, I'd like to say thank you again to both Mathieu and Antonin for taking the time to take us through the OceanOPS system. And as we've seen from the questions, this is a system that's quite useful to a number of people and very valuable in terms of the ocean observing networks. I encourage you, though, should you have any further questions around OceanOPS, is to contact the OceanOPS team. I'm then sure they'd be very willing to assist you. And also, if you could please take part in our survey at the end of this webinar, we'd be happy to answer any further questions that may come up or any further things that you may have for the Goose webinar series. So if there's nothing further from your side, from the floor, Mathieu or Antonin, if there's anything further you'd like to add at the moment?
Nothing for me, except thank you very much, Tammy, for the great moderation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, everybody.